listening to the Ballroom Network. The following program is intended for all audiences. Welcome to the South Burbs Hitmen podcast with your hosts, Joe Mandel, Zimmerman, Vinnie Parise, and Chris Gonzalez. We're bringing you the White Sox coverage you need from the perspective of true Southsiders. Grab your Comiskey dog with an ice cold beer and meet us in section 155. Everyone get on your feet for your South Burbs Hitmen.
That ball hit deep. Way back. You can put it on the board. Yes. Jimenez in the air. Left field. He's your hero tonight. Thanks, Cubs. Over the head of Jenks. Uribe charges, throws. Out! And the White Sox have won the World Series. Alexei! Yes! 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 History! A perfect game by Mark Burley, and what an unbelievable play by Dwayne Wise.
First pitch starts now.
You're muted.
And I'm muted, and I forgot to unmute. That's how you know we are back.
For everyone.
Hey, it's the first show of the year, and I pulled a rookie mistake, and I left myself muted. It's the first time in forever. But anyway, let's do that all over again. Welcome to South Burbs Hitmen. It's the Season 2 premiere. We are back after a long off-season hiatus, and we're here to bring you White Sox baseball all season long. And we're going to be talking about it with the usual suspects. Of course, we're down one suspect tonight. Our buddy Zimmerman, down with a case of laryngitis, lost his voice, but he's still here in the chat, and he's with us in spirit. But I'm joined in person by Vinnie Parise and Chris Gonzalez, the usual suspects. Gentlemen, it's been a heck of a long offseason. It felt like the longest offseason, especially with the lockout. But here we are. We're on the verge of baseball, well, regular season baseball, and I can't be any more ready for it. Vinny, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very good. It feels good to be on the first episode of a season for South Burbs Hitmen. This is my first time doing that. I'm pumped. During the lockout, guys, I was sad. I was like, we're not going to have baseball. These guys can't agree on what to eat for dinner. And then just randomly, they cancel some games, and it really looking like there's going to be either no season or half a season. It's like 2020 all over again, except this time it's more of like a annoying reason rather than a scary reason. And then, boom, one day. After 99 long, grueling days of the offseason, the lockout ends, and here we are, ready to talk about baseball for the next, hopefully, longer than every other podcast for a team out there.
Yeah, I mean, it felt great getting into one playoff series last year, but let's expand on that. Gonzo, how you doing, my friend? You are a mysterious man in black. You're living by the standards of the White Sox set. But how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, just thriving out here in life. Like Vinny said, though, I was definitely in sad boy hours for a couple of months there. You know, I mean, it's hard to, get too excited about baseball once in lockout and no moves are being made. And then all of a sudden, when that was lifted, it went crazy for a couple of days and we were all in, our anticipation was high. And,
yeah,
I mean, in some ways the team upgraded, in other ways it definitely could have been upgraded more, but we're going to definitely talk about that later in the show. But I'm excited to get into it here, and baseball is a week away, and that's where I love, most about life is in the spring, and baseball just getting started up, and then just builds our, anticipation for Soxtober, and hopefully we don't have a letdown like last fall.
Yeah, no, I think we're across the board. We're aligned there. But I know we briefly touched on the lockout, guys, but there's one thing before we get rolling into the show that I do want to touch on. And I mentioned this on Vinny's show, Crossdown Crosstalk, a couple of weeks ago. And if you guys haven't tuned into that show, you're missing out. Vinny, that's I get confused. Is it Tuesdays or Thursdays? Because you have Crosstown Crosstalk and Bar Down Blackhawks.
Yes, it's Thursday. We do the hockey show on Wednesday, and then the baseball show on Thursday. It's very similar to this show in terms of like we just argue with each other about whatever we want, but it's a little more focused on the entire MLB with like a Chicago like center point rather than just being focused on the White Sox. So it's fun to come in here and just solely focus on the White Sox as they are my favorite team.
There you go, man. And yeah, so it's great. That's a great show Vinny has. And of course, I got to go on it. And we were talking on St. Patrick's Day, about the lockout. And the one thing I want to raise the alarm on, and we've seen it happen already. We'll dive into it a little bit talking about injuries, but these guys had a short spring. They didn't have the usual off season they do. They trained on their own. They trained with their own personal trainers. I think injuries are going to be a big problem this year. I wanted to get your guys' take on it before we go any further. Chris, what do you think about that? And do you think there's going to be a rampant run of injuries in the MLB this season?
It's a good question. I mean, we can dive into what we saw yesterday, unless you want to say that for later, Joe. But I mean, that's
we'll save Andrew Vaughn for later. We'll call it a tease.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, for this, for his team to get them, get to where our expectations might be for this team, health is the number one, key for this team actually, going after, that World Series contention. I mean, they have all the talent in the world, but like we saw last season, Eloy gets injured, right there at the end of spring training, and we missed him for 2/3 of the season. And then, same thing with Robert. Robert gets injured, misses most of the season. And we only saw that White Sox team healthy for, not even a quarter of the season. And for the aspirations that team had, it's just really hard to duplicate, that team firing on all cylinders without, having that season of health. And that's something that is going to be really important going into this year. For us to see what this team's truly made out of. And we're about to find out real soon here, and hopefully they do remain healthy, because that's what is going to be essential for this season.
For sure, man. I love that take. And Vinny, the off season being as weird as it was, Liam Hendricks was on your show this off season as well and talked about how weird it was preparing in an off season without the team and without his coaches. I'm curious your thoughts on how it's going to affect players' health this year.
Yeah, Liam bought a house in Arizona just to not need it until the lockout ended, which he was frustrated about it. There's no doubt about it. He made it clear that, he was used to being a Cactus League play. He always did Florida training. Even last year was Florida training for him right before stuff got going in Arizona. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting. One thing I'd like to think about, did the White Sox lead the league in man games lost last year? No. The thing that made it seem like, the injury bug hit them harder than any other team was the players that got hurt. It was Robert, Jimenez, and Grandal. You can argue those are their three best hitters. I mean, I would insert Jose Abreu, Anderson, Moncada. Like all six of those guys are equally as important at different times of the season. But those three guys are what we call consequential players. And when all three of them are hurt, it's devastating. But I think of teams like the Los Angeles Angels. They have the two best players in baseball, in my opinion. Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout play for the Los Angeles Angels. They haven't made the playoffs in a billion years. Baseball is a team sport. When the Atlanta Braves lost Ronald Acuna Jr. last year, what did they do? They went out and won the World Series. Ronald Acuna Jr. is one of the very best players in Major League Baseball. So, yes, I think injuries are a thing. They're always going to be a thing. We're going into our third straight weird year because in 2020 we only played 60 games because of COVID-19. The following year, there were people saying that I heard literal doctors saying that the reason their injuries are up this year, man games across all of baseball were up because they only played 60 games the year before. And then they really ramped it up quickly, then shut it down quickly, then ramped it up again in spring training in 2021. That caused some injuries, according to a lot of people. So is the third year in a row, are the players going to be a little more used to having strange off seasons? Part of me thinks so. Every team will deal with injuries, We just have to hope that the Roberts, the Jimenez, Abreu, Moncada, Anderson, Vaughn, all these guys that are part of the core and will be everyday players, even guys like Sheets and, the pitchers, of course, there was a relatively fair amount of health for the pitchers last year. Nobody talks about that with the White Sox outside of Carlos Rodon's arm soreness and like a little issue with Lynn in September. Like they were mostly healthy all year long. So, I think Giolito missed one start. Dylan Cease made all 32 starts. So it's interesting to me that people are always about the injuries. I think it's just a matter of who got hurt last year. You can't let that happen again this year, because who's going to say that your mean Mercedes, I'm not saying literally your mean Mercedes, but a player out of nowhere coming out to replace that production, it's hard. But baseball is a team sport, and it's the ultimate team sport. You need all 26 people on the roster and then some. You need the minors to chip in throughout the year. You need a Sheets. You need, all these guys that come up throughout the year. So it'll be interesting to see who that is this year. I've liked what I've seen from guys like Miker Adolfo. Is it Miker or Miker? I don't even know.
I always say Micker, but I believe it is Miker, but I have to confirm.
Yeah, okay. And, we'll see what happens with Cespedes going forward. I think he'll start in AAA. He might not even come up at all this year. I know they have high hopes for Oscar Colas. So, injuries.
And we can, real quick, Vinny, we'll use that to promo one of our upcoming shows. You're talking about a couple Cuban players, coming up on our April 11th show. We do have Phil Seelig from Cuba Dugout to come on the show. We'll talk about Colas. We'll talk about Cespedes, and another reason to tune into South Burbs Hitmen. But after that shameless plug, I will let you continue.
Yeah, and Phil Seelig, he's been on Crosstown. He's been on this show. Outstanding knowledge and analysis on Cuban players. So if you're interested in baseball in any facet, he doesn't only do the Cuban guys either. Like that's his main focus, but that guy loves baseball, and he has a heavy connection with the White Sox just from all the stuff all the connections the White Sox have to that great baseball country. So very much looking forward to that. Can't wait for April 11th, in addition to every other great guest we're going to have this season. But back to what I was saying, injuries are going to happen. Just got to hope that, they stay the course. And it doesn't sound, I know we're going to get into it a little later, but it doesn't sound like any of the injuries sustained so far are too bad. So got to get to the season healthy and work from there. The White Sox, I think they were 9-1 when they were 9-1 when Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson, Yasmani Grandal, and Yohan Moncada were all in the lineup at the same time. That's crazy.
That's impressive. It really is.
I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, me too. And just to clean up the off season, the health thing, and the short off season. The only thing I have to say about it now is everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone had the same thing. So it's not like it's going to affect one guy more than it is another. These guys all had the same situation. So, that's all going to work out, hopefully. And if it doesn't, next man up. So, but I do want to briefly touch, before we get to our season preview, talk a little bit about the offseason. There were some big additions. Depending on who you ask from the White Sox side of things, there was some big additions on the White Sox. They've made little dink and dunk moves. I'm just curious, guys, and Chris, we can start with you. Your thoughts on some of these moves that have happened this offseason, and what's your biggest offseason move and the one you're most excited about?
Start off with the later part of that question. The most excitement I drew from this offseason was Han adding more depth and really talent into our bullpen. Adding Kevin Graveman, really nice arm from, he began last season with Seattle, had a really great first half, got traded to Houston, who we saw Graveman in the blackout game. He did a pretty solid job with Houston. And then adding Joe Kelly as well. With his, postseason experience he's had with, the Dodgers of recent, postseason play. He's a really good arm to have there too. I like seeing those two arms being added to our bullpen for depth. Granted, I personally, as far as the budget goes for this offseason, I know I displayed it in October when we were talking about this offseason, but I would have loved to see at least one arm being added to the pitching rotation, because that's one thing that we
still might.
They might. And I know I talked about a potential trade of Sean Mania from Oakland, and in October. I'm hoping that we can pull that. But a guy like that Robbie Ray, he had a really. I thought that deal for him was very fair for us to be in play for that, and I would have loved to see us put in maybe a couple extra million just to get him, because for 25 million, that's an arm that I would love to see in that rotation of ours. But one of my disappointments was, I'll get into that later in the show, but it was another pitcher that we got, who I just thought was a throwaway. But altogether, the pen looks really strong. That's the best part of the depth from this offseason, and the most positive thing I'll say about Hahn at this moment. I'm not even sure what Hahn is actually able to do with Jerry, taking control of giving them what amount of money he's able to spend. So I can't really be too hard on Hahn without knowing what the back end of that is. But as far as the pitching rotation goes, if it's going to be Lynn, Gio, Cease, Kopech, and Keuchel, that's one hell of a rotation. Yeah, you might want to see a better arm than Keuchel as your 5, but for those 4 guys before him, that's 3 of those 4 are probably the best. 3 of those 4 are probably the 10 best pitchers in baseball. So it's just impressive all around. If one guy gets injured, you'll probably go to the rotation of 4 for the time being, but that's still going to be one of the best rotations in the game. Outfield wise, you're defensively, it's going to be a struggle from your corners, but that was kind of on how this roster was being built.
I think that they know that, right?
They know that
they have to.
Most of your offensive production is going to come from the outfield with Eloy and Robert, and with the progression of Sheets and Vaughn platooning out there. If they have the progression that they're capable of, that's like definitely one of your, between those guys platooning, they could be above average outfielder.
Yeah.
Offensively.
Well, Vinnie, let me ask you this. Or no, go ahead, Gonzo. You can wrap your thought.
But yeah, you're going to have to give up some defense with that offensive production that they're all capable of. But in that defense is made up right through the middle of the infield, in my opinion, with Harrison and Timmy, and with Moncada and Abreu at the corners. It's a hell of an infield to make up for that defensive play. Sure. So altogether, just one hell of a talented team. So,
yeah, I'm in total alignment with you there, and that was a perfect segue for me because I was going to toss it to Vinnie.
Okay, add one more thing.
Yeah,
they didn't get a backup catcher that I thought they defensively needed. That's a con that I have to put in there. But go ahead, Joe.
Yep, and that's actually one thing that I was mentioned to Vinnie when I was on his show too, is the need for a better defensive backup catcher. But I guess we'll see what happens here when cuts start happening in camps. Maybe somebody will land on their feet and we can pick them up. But Vinnie, Chris did a perfect segue for me. I was going to ask you about Josh Harrison and the signing that with the job Rick Hahn did, getting him and what I think is a bargain price, and with that option for next season, depending on how things play out. This is a guy that's going to gel really well with this team. He's got that swagger. And I think he's underrated defensively. Personally, I'm just curious your thoughts on Harrison and the way he fits with his club.
If I could sacrifice offense from any position on the diamond, it would be second base. That's just my personal opinion. I think it's the hardest position on the infield, based on the fact that a lefty dead pull hitter, hard to defend. I know third base and shortstop get way more action, but I think the actual ability to field ground balls effectively and turn double plays from the second base position, there's a reason that a lot of second basemen across MLB are defense first. And so if you can get a guy like Whit Merrifield or Nick Madrigal, who are pretty good hitters as well, you have your cake and eat it too, if you will. So Josh Harrison, he could provide offense. He's been an all-star in his career. It was 5 years ago. He's 34 now. But if you're not getting a Semien or a Story to come over and play second base for you, then I'm okay with a move like that. I did not dislike the Harrison move as much as some people did. Maybe it was them cheaping out, but if there was a place to cheap out, I don't hate the Harrison signing at all. I think it could work out for them. He seems to be gelling. There was the picture of Tim Anderson driving everyone to practice on the cart, and who was in the front seat of the cart with a big old smile on his face? Josh Harrison. Can he be this year's Brian Goodwin in terms of like the funny guy in the room that everybody enjoys being around? I think he can. To go off what you were asking earlier about, the offseason in general, I like having Joe Kelly and Carlos Correa in the same division. I do. I think it's going to be fun. That's a guy. Listen, Craig Kimbrell might be the worst player in the bullpen. And he's the only one in the bullpen who already has his ticket to the Hall of Fame signed.
Yep.
So, that guy has the pedigree to like bounce back. I know he had a rough start to spring training. The one game wasn't that great. But, to answer Ron's question, like he's one of the guys I'm open to trading. Obviously, 16 mil for probably your worst bullpen piece. I mean, is it possible that Ruiz is better than him? Yeah, I think it is. He was last year. So, it's definitely going to be interesting. I love Kendall Graveman. People he's the guy who beaned Abreu and like started that whole thing in the playoffs. It's going to be interesting. I know they already like kind of worked that out and all that kind of stuff. Abreu got beaned by everybody last year.
Yes, he did.
Kendall Graveman was also on the Seattle Mariners, as Gonzo pointed out, and he's the one who, when he was traded, every player on the Mariners started tweeting like, I hate it here, and, they seem to give up every year, and then they almost made the playoffs anyway without Graveman.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be interesting to see how that all fits in. I think the pitching staff is loaded. I mean, Keuchel is a question mark, but like Garrett Crochet's a dirty boy. He's a dirty, dirty boy. People forget about him. He's kind of this year's Michael Kopech. I think he could take the long reliever with innings limit still, if you will, because they do seem to kind of be working him through. I think back to what Washington did with Strasburg all those years ago. It's going to be interesting to see. I like what they did with the pitching this offseason for the bullpen. I would like to see one of the A's starters come over via trade. Whether it be Minaya or Frankie Montez, either one of them is going to be the 4, because I think to start the year you go Giolito, Lynn, Cease, and work from there. Minaya or Montez would fit in at 4. You use Kopech. Kopech is the best pitcher on the staff, in my opinion, in terms of pure stuff.
When fully healthy, I agree.
And I think Cease and Giolito can match that. I really do, from the bottom of my heart. But if you're talking like just pure like 100-mile-an-hour fastball that moves, you platoon that with a curveball or a slider that moves in the opposite direction as the fastball, it becomes virtually impossible to hit. So the offseason, I don't like what they lack of addressing right field. But there's plenty of time for that. It's early April. Platooning what they're going to do. Adam Engel, people forget about him too. He's awesome defensively, and he's become a really good hitter after probably starting his career as the worst hitter in White Sox history. And he had more home runs in his injury-plagued last season than he did the year before. So off season, I give it a B+, maybe a B-. But, with the roster that they have and the talent that they have, it's different than other years that they did nothing. There have been years where they did nothing and the roster was garbage and they thought they were going to win, like 2016, where in mid-season they decided to trade Fernando Tatis Jr. to the Padres for James Shields. And then Chris Sale goes on his rampage, and it's probably the worst season in White Sox. Like that type of offseason makes me angry. But this season, it's like there's so much talent all over the place. It's like fitting in a puzzle, and you'll have a better realization of what they actually need by the trade deadline. So that's where I'm at on the offseason.
Nice, Vinny. Yeah, no, it's I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I like the additions to the bullpen. That was our glaring weakness going into we didn't think it was going into the bullpen, going into the postseason, but it ended up being, our Achilles heel. So obviously they're trying to fix that. But, you're right. In 2005, it was just the pieces coming together. And I can see that's kind of maybe what Han's trying to do. So I can respect that. I really can. But, let's jump over the wall and into the upcoming season and spring training a little bit. Of course, the big news this week is Andrew Vaughn went to go make a diving play and got injured yesterday. The White Sox released a statement today saying it's a hip flexor, and he's out for 1 to 2 weeks, which is great news. It could be a lot worse, but we've got some footage here of the injury. Let's take a look.
Speed out of the hand. Hanser Alberto, right center field. And that's going to be grabbed by Vaughn. A great diving catch by the White Sox right fielder. And back to first base, Will Smith. Boy, he took a double away from Hanser Alberto.
Limping a little bit. He paid the price. That was a crack.
He certainly paid the price on that one. And you would think after watching spring training last year, where Eloy, rips the muscle off of his arm hanging over the fence, that Andrew might not go so hard. But I'm not saying not to make the play, but
I am.
You could well, yeah. I mean, I think you make an effort. I don't think you have to dive like that in spring. But initial thoughts on the injury, Vinnie, since you're shaking your head, I'll toss it to you. But they seem to have dodged a bullet here.
Yeah. When I woke up this morning and saw that they weren't having a press conference, I was like, okay, he's probably fine. Because you might remember last year when Eloy decided to dangle from a left field fence trying to rob a home run that clearly was unrobbable in a spring training game that meant absolutely nothing. I'm still mad at him for it, and I would tell it to him right to his face if I saw him today. Vaughn is a little bit of a different story. He knew he had a chance to make the play. He knows that right field is the harder of the two corner outfield positions, and it's not as easy to just step in and play as he did. He played admirably in left field last year. I think his left field play last year was a little like he played well early. The metrics say he was okay, but he was better than Eloy, so people thought he was like a godly left fielder. And, credit to him for making that switch and giving it a chance. I respect a guy who tries hard, though. As much as I say I wouldn't, I would have made the business decision to stay healthy, sure. And he's having a great spring offensively. And we know how important his bat is in the lineup. As you guys said earlier, you give up a little bit of defense for his offense. I agree with that. But I also think they have a designated hitter role if he's not playing first base. Sheets and Vaughn, if I were in charge, would be platooning DH, and Engel would be playing right field unless they signed or traded for someone to be the full-time right fielder. But they want his bat in the lineup, and they want Sheets' bat in the lineup too. And they probably want Engel's bat in the lineup from time to time. Leury Garcia, good utility player. He looks a lot more natural. I mean, even last year watching Vaughn play left, there was nothing graceful about it. He definitely had that shakiness to him when he was out there making the plays. But he made the plays a lot of the time. So, I have no issue with him out there trying. People blaming Tony La Russa. Listen, I'll get on Tony La Russa about anything I want to. I'm not getting on him about that. He's playing his guys in the spring training game. What's he supposed to do? Yeah. He's playing the roster that Rick Hahn provided for him via Jerry Reinsdorf. We can get into that later in the show. But Andrew Vaughn, glad he's healthy. 1 to 2 weeks. I think he could be ready for opening day. It's 11 days away. Yeah. 1 to 2 weeks if you even that out, it's probably around 11, 12 days. Maybe if they face a Detroit, is Casey Mize going to be their opening day starter? In that case, it probably would be Sheets in the lineup to start. So, I don't even know how it's going to go from there. He could DH there or pinch hit. I mean, there are so many ways to go about it, but I'm glad Sheets is going to be okay. And like I said, when I woke up and there was no press conference announced for 11:30 this morning, I was like, oh, thank God. He's going to be okay.
You mean Vaughn?
Yeah, Vaughn. Sorry, but last year,
I'm glad Sheets is going to be okay too.
Yeah, they had the press conference for Eloy last year. You might remember, he got hurt that it was a night, or it was a late afternoon spring training game, and the next morning it was Rick Hahn set to meet the media. I'm like, oh, no, Eloy's gone.
Bad news.
Yeah, so good thing that didn't happen, and we can move on.
We certainly dodged a bullet there for sure. It's been an interesting spring so far, gents.
Could I just
go ahead?
Butt in there.
Dive in, baby. Dive head first. Lube up.
All right. If you see me on Twitter just commenting a lot, it's probably because I'm just losing my shit because I'm seeing a lot of people talking out of their ass on a certain topic. And that situation, it just drives me nuts because it's mostly people trying to shoot narratives out there. Like as soon as something goes wrong in right field, they're like, "Oh, let's go get Conforto. Let's go get Conforto." It's like, let's just take a breather because there's a reason why Conforto is unsigned to this point. He's just overpriced.
We all know why. Yeah, he wants too much money.
Yeah, but it has
Too much
nothing
money,
even
and
necessarily to do with Conforto.
he's an average right fielder for the money that he wants. So
for me, it's not about Conforto. It's about getting somebody who plays right field to play right field. Vaughn and Sheets both look unnatural out there. I know it was a nice catch, but like,
even if it's unnatural, though, he made the catch, and the fundamentals he made to make that catch were on. His first step was back, which it always should be back. It's much easier to go front for the ball than it is to go back.
If it were a regular season
and
game, I would
the
agree.
read for that ball, it's certainly harder than it looked. And to make that catch, I gave him all the credit. He has the versatility to play the corners, without a doubt. I'd compare him with Bellinger with his versatility. So I'm not worried about him playing any of the quarter outfielders. Like, I'm just not.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm worried about it either. It's just I like the idea of he hurt himself just like Eloy last year, and those guys
but anyone can
awful in the outfield.
Any normal outfielder can get hurt too. One of your elite outfielders in Acuna got injured making a play out there in the outfield.
Absolutely.
Well, so it's just ridiculous to say, oh, we need he's out of position. Any other outfielder can make that catch without having to dive for it. It's just some of these takes are just ridiculous. So
no, I'm with you, man. And before jumped in on this, I was going to get your thoughts on what happens with the starting rotation, because we've seen a couple of these guys get roughed around. I mean, that always happens in spring. Guys are trying new pitches, they're trying new things. What happens with the starting rotation, Gonzo?
As far as
what is it? What is the rotation to start the season?
I think it's going to be Lynn. I think Lynn's going to get the nod. You'll probably have Giolito as your 2, then Cease, Kopech, and then Keuchel. And that's your starting rotation there from 1 to 5. I got some predictions on our pitching staff coming later in the show. Now let's say we get like they trade and get Sean Mania.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really talented lefty. I mean, I could see him as a 3 and a top 3. I think you can rotate him and Gio as our third best pitcher in the rotation. But yeah, I mean, if that happens, I would still. I mean, I wouldn't DFA Keuchel. Squeak there, but I wouldn't DFA Keuchel. I'd like to keep him around just in case, there is an injury in the rotation, because God forbid we do have an injury and we need someone in there to eat up innings, and Keuchel still has the talent to do so.
I mean, there's that, and then he becomes trade bait too, right?
That too, yeah. I mean, but yeah, I mean, there's just so many options right there if that a trade happens. But we definitely need. And I was surprised that we didn't see another arm get signed than Vince Velasquez, because it's important to have some depth to eat up innings, and when you're especially a quality arm when you're going to be in the race down the stretch here. I mean, yeah, they should win the division easily again, especially if they're healthy. They should just blow through the division. But like going into the offseason, it would be nice to have some more options here in the rotation.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, and I think there's a couple things that are probably going to happen before the season starts. I think we'll probably add an arm. Mm-hmm. I would be shocked if we didn't, and I think we may grab a backup catcher when cuts start at camp. I'm just curious, to see what happens in that respect. But maybe I'm wrong. But I do want to touch base, or at least touch on a guy that we have talked about for a long time. I mean, this is a guy who is easily in the consideration for MVP. And I had a prediction last year that he would be, and I think all of us feel like he's going to be in that conversation. We'll touch more on that later, but I'm going to pull up some video while I talk about him. But of course, Luis Robert has been just on a tear. in spring. Let's take a look at this home run. I mean, he's been just labeling the ball this spring. The ball popping off his bat. He looks fast. He looks strong. And we talked about healthy. This guy, he looks healthy. If we get a full healthy season out of Luis Robert, gentlemen, I mean, I think the sky's the limit here, right? I mean, then you get Eloy. You get Eli going. He's having a nice spring. You get Tim Anderson going. You get Josh Harrison going. Andrew Vaughn right there. Speak of the devil. These guys working. If they get everything hot, this team can score 9 runs every game like they did in this game against the Dodgers, and they could be one of the best offenses in baseball. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing from the offense, and especially Luis Robert. Vinny, talk to me about Luis Robert, because I know you're an even bigger fan than I am.
If the Chicago Blackhawks trade Patrick Kane this summer, Luis Robert will then be the best male athlete in Chicago, in my opinion. But right now I have them 2. They both wear 88, which is kind of funny. But ironic. Luis Robert is insane. He has more physical tools than I've ever seen a Chicago White Sox player have. If Andrew Vaughn and Cheats play right field this year, one of the only reasons I'm okay with it is because Luis Robert is in center. Because he just covers so much ground. And yeah, any outfielder can get hurt playing the outfield, but I think you're more likely to get hurt if you're covering more ground when you're not that good at it. Luis Robert takes that away from someone like, whoever's playing right field, and even Eloy in left. He's so fast. He can throw a dart to home plate from center field. He hits bombs. He hits for contact. He steals bases. I mean, have the White Sox ever had a 5-tool player at this age before? I'm going to say
I don't think so.
I don't think they have. I've always heard if he grew up in the United States, he would have played linebacker at Georgia and been a top 10 pick in the NFL. That's the physical specimen that he is. And he's just out there mashing home runs in spring training. Off of some good pitchers too. He follows up a 1 home run, 2 RBI game with a 2 home run, 4 RBI game. And he just impacts every field he steps on, it seems like. He had 3 WAR in the 60-something games he played last year. Over 162, let's say he plays 145, give or take, a couple off days. We're looking at a 7, 8, 9 WAR player. That's MVP stuff. So Luis Robert, he's absolutely incredible in every way, shape, and form. I don't think the White Sox have ever had a better player. Frank Thomas and Paul Konerko are their 2 best players ever in that order. Robert's coming for it. And like you said earlier, if you have Jimenez hit 45 home runs with a fair average, and Abreu hits for 120 RBIs again, and Vaughn comes back healthy and does what he does, Moncada and Anderson keep up their on-base percentage the way we know they can keep it, then Luis Robert is the leader of one really good team. And, man, I can't wait to watch him truly keep it going.
I'm with you, man. He's one of my most anticipated players this year. And he's going to be one of those names you're going to hear all year long on MLB Network and Sports Center. It's exciting. But I did pull up here some of the offensive stats from spring. And we talked about, these guys absolutely raking. You got Eloy with 7 RBI, Robert with 7, Adolfo with 7. Cespedes has got 6. It's kind of exciting to see Adolfo hitting so well this spring. In 14 at-bats, hitting 500. 2 of those are homers. I mean, that's exciting. You have to imagine he may have some sort of role on this team. Maybe not on the team straight out of spring training, but I could definitely see him being called up later in the year. And, let's look at Cespedes here. While I'm one that's in the camp of him needing a full year in AAA to kind of develop his skills, I am excited for the future to see him what he's going to bring to the team. Gavin Sheets having a nice spring so far. Berger, doing Berger stuff. Jose Abreu is kind of having a rough start to spring, but you never really worry about MVP though. I mean, he comes around, so that's not like anything for us to really worry about. But for me, the most exciting thing on here is seeing Luis Robert just crushing the ball, 3 homers. He's only hitting 263, but that's in less than 20 at bats, and he's got that many RBI, many homers. it's pretty encouraging. Of course, TA is slugging out the gate too, batting .429. Things are looking up for this season. Gonzo, what do you think about this offense and what you're seeing this spring?
Yeah, so going back to Luis Robert, like last time we had a guy of that talent in center field was the early 19th century with shoeless Joe Jackson. So, and this is a guy that he hit like 340 when he came back from his injury. I think he ended with like 345 or something like that as a batting average, which was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, if he's healthy, he's definitely for sure probably the best. I would say he'd be the best center fielder in the game in this league, and guy that for sure will be up there for MVP voting. Yeah, you're just hoping that for health wise, he, knock on wood that he remains healthy. But yeah, to looking at that list, I would love to see Adolfo get a shot at making the roster, and I would actually like to put him in front of Engel at this point. Because there's one thing about Adolfo is that if you put him in right field, he has one hell of an arm too. Him and Cespedes, Cespedes, yeah, they both have really great arms out there in right field. And Cespedes is definitely hitting the ball well. He hit a home run right off of one of the best arms in the game, and Walker Buehler. And yeah, all together, it's just crazy seeing that young talent of ours in the outfield. We keep complaining about a right fielder, but we have a lot of young right field talent. And Adolfo, Cespedes, Sheets, Vaughn. It's just crazy to see the talent that's out there in the outfield.
Cespedes is super raw. I keep lobbying. I'd love to see him at least get a full year in the minors to polish that skill. But he's going to be a great talent. Just needs to refine his bat a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, and I think he's a guy that we'll probably see on the extended rosters in September. But for the same reason, like you said, Joe, he needs the reps down there in double AAA for the same reason why Jake Berger did last year, and Berger's and also another name for second baseman that you'll probably see make the roster potentially, or coming up later in the season, like maybe June, but. He's an interesting name that will be in there too.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where we go out of spring.
I'll have to look it up real quick. Go ahead, talk a little bit, Joe. There's another name. There's a catcher I saw that I had my eye on him because he's probably the best defensive catcher that we have. Stall for a couple of minutes here while I find him.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And I know our buddy Vince Tassoni's in the chat. Vince, I know there's a catcher you were messaging me about earlier. I'm losing my mind who it was, but if you want to put it here in the chat, I'll pull it up on the screen. Okay, wow, he was quick.
It was Nick something, right? Yeah, yep. I even know how to pronounce that, but yes, he is the best defensive catcher that we have in the organization right now. It's an interesting name to bring up because as far as defensive catchers go, that's key. Because with Grandal, with his knee issues, when his knee is acting up, that's the part of his game that it just, slacks with his mitt. But yeah.
Cool. Thanks, buddy. And, we've gotten to the point of the show. We talked spring training. We're getting ready to hop into a season preview. We're getting our gears shifted here. And this is the part of the show. And every year we do it. We amp up. It's our season prediction time. So with that said, and of course my sump pump's going to go off right as I start talking about this, but it'll be off in just a second. There it goes. And we're going to predict the record for this year for your Chicago White Sox. And we'll lead it off with Zim, who can't join us right now, but he did tell us his prediction before the show started. Zim is going to predict that the White Sox win 97 games and go 97-65 to win the AL Central. I like the moxie there, kid. I like the optimism. I'd love to see us win 97 games. Vinny, what do you have for your season prediction?
Yeah, pending health. I think the White Sox are the best team in the American League Central. I know the Twins and the Tigers will give them a run for their money. they'll be a lot better this year, but also so will the White Sox because they won't be missing a fair amount of their top players for a good portion of the season. And I also don't think they'll take the foot off the gas in August quite as much as they did last year, knowing how that can impact them once October rolls around.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think they'll be a lot less inclined to rest. And, they need those top 6 in the lineup every single day as much as they can. So with that, I think the White Sox will be 2 games improved over last season, which is a lot when you start talking about 90-something games. 2 wins over the year before is a lot. I'm going to go with 95 and 67.
95 and 67. Very nice. I like it, Vinny. Either way, both these guys, high win total, over 90. Big stuff. Gonzo. Actually, let me write it down so I have record of this. That was 90. What was it, Vinny? 95?
95 and 67. I believe that adds up to 162.
Yeah. Yeah. My math is, yeah. Yep, it does. Gonzo, your prediction, my friend.
Originally, I was going to say, because I just felt like there's going to be a health issue, but originally I was thinking 89, 90 wins. I'm kind of going back. I feel like they're actually going to be more healthy this year than they were last season, and I'm actually with Vinny. I'm going 95 as well.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Both you guys. What happens if you both get it right?
It's an interesting win total because you go over 95, then you start creeping towards 100, then you're looking at the best record in baseball. 95 wins certainly wins you the American League Central Division, I would say. I don't think the Twins are going to get much over 85 to 90. And then, but I hope the White Sox win the division. I hope they win 95 games, but I hope the gap isn't as big as last year. I do. Like, I'm going to be cheering on the Twins and Tigers to, make things interesting.
Yeah, keep it interesting.
There's the extra playoff spot. I'm not worried about them making it to the postseason by any means.
No.
Especially since the 1-game wild card is gone. Every team's going to go into the playoffs looking for – but, play at home in the playoffs. We know what Lucas Giolito can do at home. We know what Lance Lynn can do in the playoffs against basically every other team besides the Houston Astros, unfortunately. Are they even going to be as good next year without Correa? I'm excited about this season. I like that win total of 95 for sure.
Very nice. Well, you guys are aligned on that. I think they're going to be good. I just can't see them winning that many games. I hope I'm wrong. I'm not far off from you guys. I think they're going to be a little bit foot off the gas towards the end again. But I do think I'm going to go 90. I'm going to go 92 and 70. I think they're going to win 92 games. It's a long season. There's a lot going on, injuries and all that fun stuff. I just feel like 92 is where they're going to land. Just a little less than you guys. I'd love for them to prove me wrong.
The Braves 189, so it doesn't really matter in that case. Just get into the dance.
That's all you got to do. You got to get to the dance, and I think they've got more than enough to get to the dance. So that's my prediction there. But the next prediction question here is who leads the White Sox in RBI in 2022? This is a big one, tough one. Our buddy Steven Zimmerman says Jose Abreu, says he returns to form and just clubs the hell out of the ball in 2022. So Zim's going to go with Jose. Gonzo, who are you going with?
I'm with Zim because, he's, what was it? 3 out of the last 5 years, or no, was it 5 years in a row? He's at 100 ribbies. He's
every year of his career but one.
Yeah, he's under.
Except 2020, which he was on pace for 162.
Yeah. I think, it's 3 of the last 5 years, I believe that would have been. But yeah, he's on a roll. Until someone else can be ahead of him on ribbies, I'm gonna go with Jose. He was MVP for a reason that year, and he's the leader of this club. And I think Jose is going to continue to be that cleanup hitter of ours that he's going to be up there for best first baseman in the league.
I love it, man. I think we all would love to see Jose have a monster year. I'm going to change things up. I think it's the year of Luis Robert. I really do. I think he's going to own the American League as long as he stays healthy. I think he will by far lead this team in RBI. I'm going to say it. I think he goes over 100 this year, and I don't think it's close. I think he's by far the RBI leader on this team with a full season. Spoken Jose. I think Jose is going to have a good year. I have a feeling that Luis is going to be the end all be all. So I'm going with Luis Babo. Luis Babo. How about you, Mr. Vinnie?
Yeah, I'm going with Abreu. 60 RBIs in 60 games in 2020. Won the RBI title that year. Always in contention. I believe he won it the year before that too in 2019. He came in second last year, and the only person who had more than him was Salvador Perez of the Kansas City Royals. I think Abreu, his spot in the lineup has a lot to do with it. I think Luis Robert will be a lot of the runs scored for Jose Abreu's RBIs. So will Tim Anderson and Moncada, even Jimenez maybe from time to time. But, I think Abreu, he seems to know what to do when there's runners in scoring position better than any player the White Sox have ever had. And I think Robert will develop that. And I think Robert's just natural skill will lead to that happening naturally. When you put the best guys out there, they're going to come up with the best results. And that's what Robert can do. But I like Abreu for this just because of his ability to be clutch. He'll be the guy. If there's a guy who you could choose to come up for the White Sox when there's runners on second and third, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, you're down 1, and a base hit would win the game, I think I would pick Jose Abreu over anyone on the team, even though I think he's about the 3rd or 4th best overall hitter on the team. Abreu just has that knack for driving in runs, and that's why I'm choosing him.
Hey, 3 of you chose him for a reason, so let's be honest. Jose is just a master when there's runners on base. So that great choice. I just feel like Luis takes that next step this year.
I hope you're right, though. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I think we would all love to see everyone on this team have 70 plus RBI.
Yeah.
And maybe that happens. Who knows? Probably not. But, it's going to be fun. I posed a question to you guys before we went live. Are there any MVP candidates on this team? And I think we've already talked about a couple of them. So I don't think we need to tell anybody else about Jose Abreu and Luis Robert again. But, who are some other people that could be sneaky MVP candidates on this team? I'll lead it off here. And I think Tim Anderson could be a sneaky candidate for MVP. The way he hits the ball, he hits for average. If he adds some more RBI to his repertoire this year, this is a guy who could make a run at an MVP. I don't know how many RBI he's going to be able to get to be in that conversation, but Timmy is a leader on and off the field, and he's one of those guys that I think could be a sneaky option there. Gonzo, any other options on this team for MVP candidates besides the obvious?
You can always say Eloy. Eloy remains healthy. He's got the power and the bat to do so. I'd also say, to kind of switch sides, to go the equivalent of MVP with Cy Young, I think we have a candidate in Cease, who was right behind Cole and he's been with strikeouts last year. Cole and Robbie Ray. Yeah, and he was right behind both of them for strikeouts as his rookie season. That's a guy that could be a Cy Young this year and be the true ace of our staff going into the offseason. And I'll go into that a little bit further later on here. But those are 2 names I'd throw in there for, potential lucrative award winning, award candidates on our club.
Good stuff. Vinny, options for sneaky MVP candidates on this team?
Yeah, so I think Robert and Abreu and Anderson are the obvious ones. They're the ones who have been top 20 vote getters in the last 2 years. Robert, not last year, but the year before because he was healthy. I think those 3 guys are of course, they're MVP candidates. Last year, Giolito, Lynn, Rodon, who's no longer with us, which sucks, and Hendricks, Liam Hendricks, all finished top 11 in Cy Young voting. And I didn't even mention Cease or Kopech, who are both they have nasty stuff. So those guys could always be in the MVP conversation. If you're in the Cy Young conversation, chances are you'll get MVP votes, depending on how good of a Cy Young season it is. As far as sleepers, if Eloy hits 50 bombs and drives in 110, I don't think his defense would hold him down because they do take defense into consideration, which Abreu and Robert and Tim have turned into great defensive players over the last 2 years, which is why they get like the nod as like the locks to be in consideration. But if Jimenez just plays average right field, hits 50 bombs and drives in 110, then yeah, I think he could be in the conversation. But if we're going to go like true sneaky, I'm going to say Yoan Moncada. Yoan Moncada, he's probably the most, I don't even know the word I'm looking for. He's the most interesting White Sox player to talk about on White Sox Twitter, the most intriguing, the most, debated, I guess you could say. I think he's a very good player. He's outstanding defensively.
He's polarizing, man. He is.
Polarizing, that's the word I'm looking for. Okay, he's definitely polarizing. If he hits 25 to 30 bombs, has an OPS in the fours, so his slugging percentage in the fours, I mean, getting his OPS into the high 800s, low 900s with that elite defense, he could absolutely be a sleeper for MVP. He had a 4 WAR last year, and people called that a bad season. If you're upset with like a 4 WAR player, like, what are we talking about? Does that mean if he's a 6 or 7 WAR player that we really start giving him the respect that he deserves? I think Yoan's going to have a huge year. He'll hit more home runs than he did last year. And obviously that'll cause him to drive in more RBIs. The thing that annoys me, people call Yoan soft. He was second on the White Sox in games played last year. The only one who had more games played than him last year was the guy that everybody considers big and tough and, big meanie, Jose Abreu. So, just the stuff surrounding Moncada kind of annoys me, and I'll fight anyone on him. I think he's a very good player that could, in any given year, go off like that.
Yeah.
I did this because of his glove, because that doesn't even get talked about.
Yeah, elite defensive thing.
Killer glove.
He was a below average defensive second baseman and became an elite defensive third baseman. It's just weird how that happened.
Since our boy Zim's not here, I'll have to add his choice as a sneaky MVP and go with the one and only Yaz Grandal. I mean, let's face it.
Don't put words in his mouth.
He actually is, though.
Let's face it. D Rose would say, "Why not me?"
He's a candidate. I give him he's a candidate.
Him and his bum knee, man, he'll torch it with that bat of his.
Zim is going to reach his arm through your computer screen and pull you through.
No, Grandal was awesome last year. If he played the whole year, and people talk about the bat, I hate batting average. I think it's a stupid stat. I like the OPS way better. His slugging percentage was through the roof, and he provided some big offense for the White Sox. I hope his knee feels better so he stops letting by 1,000 pass balls.
Yeah, right. Real quick, Zim's pick for MVP. He said, healthy Eloy and healthy Robert means MVP though. So he's going with Jose, which I think is a smart choice as well. But, let's dive in, guys. Let's talk about our friendly neighborhood manager and what we expect from him in 2022 in a segment that we like to call La Russa's Locker. Yes, we get to talk about Tony. He's back for year 2. Well, year 2 of this run with the White Sox anyway. And preparing to make yet another World Series run after a disappointing exit last season. Tony La Russa. This guy, I mean, all I can think of is him running after Jose Abreu at like snail's pace. And that's just the thought when I think of Tony La Russa now in my brain. And it gives me absolute joy. I think it's just more of the same from Tony this year, guys. I think he learned last year the one thing that he's going to learn, and Vinnie and I talked about this on Crosstown Crosstalk, is don't take the foot off the gas in late August, because that was the difference between playing the Astros in the first round, or what was it? Was it Boston they would have played, or the Yankees? I'm trying to remember.
In the second round?
Yeah, right.
In Boston.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the difference right there. Is those the Astros were our kryptonite last year. They just couldn't get it figured out. But you got to keep your foot on the gas. And I think that's Tony's biggest takeaway, in my opinion. Vinnie, when you think about Tony La Russa heading into 2022, what comes to mind, and what do you think he needs to do to make this team I don't want to say unbeatable, but the best team in the majors?
Yeah, I think Tony La Russa is going to have a very good year. He pissed me off today by saying that I'm not a White Sox fan for thinking they need to add a right fielder to play right field, but I'll let that go. He's a good player, or he's a good coach. So, he's done what he's needed to do in his career. They keep building a bullpen while he's the manager. I think that's no coincidence. I think he has a hand in adding Joe Kelly and Kendall Graveman and stuff like that. And, I think they went out and got Kimbrel. He didn't use Kimbrel right. There's no doubt about it. Kimbrel's a closer, and that's it. So they should trade him if they're not going to platoon him as a closer with Liam Hendricks, which it never hurts to have too many ninth inning guys. I don't understand. But, as long as he's not insulting me, I'll be okay with him. He was good last year. I'll take it back. He was bad in April. He was very bad in April.
He was bad.
I hated the way the team was managed in April. But
he was asleep at the wheel.
But what gives me hope is that he kind of learned from those mistakes. Extra innings improved as the season went along, and the bullpen management improved as the season went along. It was his first year back after 9 years off with a good team that's a young team. Baseball's changed over the last decade. Players' personalities have changed over the last decade. The world has changed over the last decade. So another year under the belt for him. I think he's coming into this year ready to go. He knows what this team is capable of. Just have a good April, Tony. I think that could be the difference in home field advantage.
It's a good point. It really is.
Hard schedule to start the year, too.
Yeah, really, it is a tough schedule. Keep foot on the gas all year long. Gonzo, Tony La Russa, 2022. How do you feel? What does he do? How does he make you feel?
I actually commend him for last April because he was putting pitchers in tough positions that they needed to be in as they go on later in the season, and they end up excelling in. To go back to Tony, I think you're going to expect him to get the most out of the talented pen. That's probably going to be the best pen in the league. And to get our young guys getting progression in their development, guys like, Vaughn and Sheets and, Cease and so much of our young core, especially Timmy. I mean, Timmy just called him his best friend this past week with Chuck. Guy that really helped him step up his game to get the most out of him. All together, that with some of the change rules from this offseason, I mean, we're not going to see this BS California rule with the runner in second and extra innings.
Well, maybe in April, Tony will send somebody out to second base in extra innings, but
yeah,
that is back this year.
Is it? I thought they took.
Yeah, no, that's back for this year.
Is that the Ohtani rule then?
The Ohtani rule is that the Angels are allowed to leave him as a DH on games he pitches. So when he's done in the sixth inning or whatever, he's allowed to then transition to being a DH when they bring in a new pitcher. That's the Ohtani rule.
But they're not putting the runner on second base to start extra innings, though. That's gone, right?
I think they are.
No,
I thought that was
CBA,
gone.
The new CBA changed it. Said no runners on base to start extra innings.
We'll get you guys an official answer. I'm fairly certain that they put that in the CBA, that they got rid of it, but we will definitely give you an answer.
And we had doubleheaders or 9-inning games. So you're going to get, he's not there really, which he's always been a bullpen coach, but with the pitching staff, with, doubleheaders, both games being 9-inning games, he's going to have to be smart with his pitching staff that he has each day with arms available.
The ghost runner and extra innings is back for 2022 only.
Okay, so so they got rid of it in the new CBA, but it goes away next year.
2023.
But the playoffs
This
is gone,
be...
right? That's the way.
Yes,
that's the thing.
Yes, it was gone in the playoffs. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, that's what. All right. So yeah, PZ says
28
back to
man
this.
rosters until May 1st. Ghost runner and extra innings only for 22, and then the Ohtani rule: pitcher can remain a DH once he's pulled from the mound.
Got it. And then universal DH is starting this year, or is it starting next year?
No, it's starting this year. Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Now that we're all caught up on rule changes.
Why does the CBA have to fuck this all up?
Speaking of DHs, had an interesting DH in the last decade or so. His name was Adam Dunn, which sets us up perfectly for the Adam Dud of the week.
You suck!
You suck.
Stupid. Lousy. No excuse.
What a dud. What a total dud.
Yeah, so this is the Adam Dud of the week. And at this point, we're going to focus on, well, it could be a couple things. You could be the Adam Dud of spring training or the Adam Dud of the offseason. I'll let you guys pick your poison however you want to do it. You can talk about someone dragging in spring, or you can talk about a move that you absolutely hated. It doesn't even necessarily have to be on the White Sox. Vinny, you look like you got something top of mind, so I will let you lead things off here.
My only gripe with the White Sox right now is Jerry Reinsdorf. I don't hate Tony La Russa by any stretch of the imagination. I actually like Tony La Russa. He helped torment the Cubs. The Cardinals were very good for a long time. The White Sox are awesome under him. He's helped a lot of players take the next step, but it makes me angry that it was not Rick Hahn's decision. It makes me angry that it was Jerry Reinsdorf's decision. If Rick Hahn hired Tony La Russa, I would have no problem with the hire. I don't like when the owner meddles in baseball operations, especially because he's helping out a friend. That is just not how you should run your business. I don't think it was Rick Hahn's fault that they shorted Giolito by $50,000. You know, a starting retail worker is keeping a salary, is keeping Giolito and the White Sox from not going to arbitration. That pisses me off. That screams Jerry Reinsdorf to me. He's my only gripe with the team. If Rick Hahn resigned because he was sick of Jerry Reinsdorf's garbage, he would be signed by a new team the next day because of what he's done with limited resources with this team. He's got a direct line to Cuba, clearly. He's got awesome ways of recruiting that way. He makes brilliant trades for the most part. I know Craig Kimbrell for Madrigal and Cody Hoyer is a dud. I understand that. I know when they were trying to win in 2016 and they traded for James Shields, that was a dud. Not every trade is a win, but every trade that was part of the rebuild, Jimenez and Cease for Quintana, Sale for Moncada and Kopech, Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez and Dane Dunning, who became Lance Lynn, for Adam Eaton. All those trades were awesome. I like Rick Hahn. I have no problem. People who rip on Rick Hahn just aren't paying attention to the White Sox because it's Jerry Reinsdorf, and that is my gripe with the offseason. I would have signed a big money right fielder. I'm not even talking Conforto. Conforto's going to be way overpriced. I would pay it personally because it's not my money. I don't care. And there's no salary cap. The White Sox have it to spend. But could they have gotten somebody else? One of the other big free agent outfielders. Well, even if it was someone like Schwarber or Bryant or Castellanos, any of these guys, it makes me so mad that they are so close to being like they're a World Series contender right now. They are so close to being a World Series favorite. And I believe it's Jerry Reinsdorf keeping them from getting there. That is my gripe of the offseason.
Yeah,
Dud of the week.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. Jerry needs to open that pocketbook. I would have loved to see them add one of those big pieces like you mentioned. It's kind of scary, but mine is kind of similar to yours, Vinny, and I'm just going to say the offseason as a dud, at least in the American League Central. It's just the White Sox in general. It's the whole front office. They've made some moves, decent moves, but you look at what the rest of the division has done. I mean, the Twins landing Carlos Correa. They got Chris Archer. That's news as of, I think, just the other day. They just signed Chris Archer. Actually,
Twins.
just recently.
Twins have done really well, though.
I mean, the Twins are doing great this offseason. You see what the Tigers, getting Javier Baez. They're building around their young core.
Tucker Barnhart, who we wanted on this podcast last year.
Yes, we did want him last year as well. So they're adding all these quality pieces. I'm not going to talk about the Royals because they just seem to fall further into oblivion. They signed Zach Greinke. Good for them. But
good prospects, though.
What's that?
Good prospects, though.
Yeah, no, they've got good prospects. I feel like everyone's done something but us. And
it's nice, though, seeing Greinke go back to where he started off. I like to say.
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting at. Like, good for them.
Seems to be the theme with Missouri baseball teams, too.
Yeah, of course, you have Albert Pujols doing the same thing.
Sonny Gray,
Cardinals.
Also to the Twins.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are doing a lot of stuff, and the White Sox aren't. And sure, Joe Kelly was a great addition. Josh Harrison, great addition. But it's a small – I mean, Joe Kelly's a big addition to the pen, but there's no major signings, and it just rubs me the wrong way. So I'm just going to go with the whole White Sox front office is my Adam Dud of the offseason. Gonzo, who's your dud?
Before I get my dud, I also want to say, as much as I want it, because I brought up Robbie Ray's deal and Marcus Semien, both I thought would have been great. You could probably both include them together. You might be, right near the luxury cap for the tax, but I think both were solid deals for their value. But if you were to do that, it would be rough to re-sign, or not re-sign, but get extensions for Timmy. C's coming up. There's a couple names of our core that we're going to have to give extensions to, and
sure,
that would have been really tough to do. But, to go back to the Adam Dud. My dud would have been what Vincent put there in the chat with Vince Velasquez, which is I brought him up earlier, and he indeed is my dud. For a quality arm that I want to see signed, that wasn't enough at all. For me, if you really wanted to put a quality arm that would have showed me that is a guy that's going to be fighting for that fifth spot in rotation, it would have been John Gray. And I'm trying to remember. I think he went to the Phillies. I think the Phillies signed him. I have to look into that again, but he was a guy that I was targeting in our off-season show that we did in October. And I think he went for, if I remember, like $13 million or something like that. But
there's been so many guys that could have been signed for relatively inexpensive contracts.
Yeah, but that's just a guy. He was in the same draft with Snell from Tampa. Now he's in San Diego. No, not Snell. Sorry, not Snell. Glasnow, Tyler Glasnow with the Rays. They were drafted right next to each other, and his talent is unbelievable. But he was just with in Colorado, and not the best ballpark if you have that fastball that he's got and the talent. And he's going to get a good shot with, I think it is the Phillies, but I think he's going to really take off with that talent that he has. And I would have loved to see the Sox go for him. Maybe Vincent's right. I have to go look at the transaction, but bottom line, he's a quality arm that I would love to see them take a shot on it because he could probably surprise a lot of people with a contender.
Who's your dud? Is it White Sox front office?
No, with what Vincent said with Vince.
Oh,
Velasquez.
Right, Velasquez. Yeah. Got it.
Yep.
Cool. Well, as you can see, there's a common theme here. It's just wishing that we had some better arms in the pen and some better signings. And I think it's what all White Sox fans want. And there's still a little bit of time, so you might see something get done here. I would love to see that happen. But, let's go.
If the Sox make that trade for Sean Manaea, I will be going crazy on Twitter. So.
Yep. Tune in for Gonzo's mental breakdown when they sign Sean Manaea. Or a trade for him, I mean. But let's dive into the positive side of things. Let's put our spin on it. Let's get amped up. What are you feeling good about? Who is your put it on the board player of the spring? And what's getting you excited for the baseball season? So without further ado, this is our Put It on the Board segment of the show.
Ball hit deep. Way back. He looks up. You can put it on the board. Yes!
You can put it on the board hits differently when you find an old one that has Darren Jackson saying yes with Hawk.
Yeah, right. It certainly does. I mean, nothing like the Hawk, man. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love Benetti and Stone, but some of those old Hawk calls are just classic.
Every now and then I'll throw on that. There's like a 30-minute YouTube video that just has like angry Hawk, sad Hawk, depressed Hawk. Like, so funny. The one where David Wright hits the pop-up and Gordon Beckham drops it on the infield. And he just sits there with like 40 straight seconds of dead mic. No commentary whatsoever. And Steve Stone's not going to say anything. It was just so funny. I love that guy. He cares about the White Sox just as much as every single person in the chat and on this screen.
He does. I mean, I ran into him in Greek Islands once downtown and on Halsted Street in Greektown, and he was sitting with his whole family. I just walked over and said, "Hey, what's up, Hawk?" I said, tough loss today. He goes, "Yeah, wasn't a good one, but those boys are going to come back and they're going to kick some ass tomorrow." It's just kind of like, those are just the things you remember because that's just Hawk through and through. But obviously we're excited heading into 2022, and there's a lot to look forward to. But, who is your put it on the board player or moment of the spring heading into baseball season? Gonzo, what's got you amped up and is excited for the start of baseball season?
Yeah, so real quick, to correct myself, Vince was right. Gray did go to the Rangers. So shout out to you, Vince, for keeping me on my heels. But to go with my put on the board player, I'm going to go with two guys here. I got some bold predictions for both of them. Both are pitchers. I talked about Dylan Cease enough, but I liked what I saw out of him on the mound lately. I think I really think he's going to be by the end of the year, he'll be the ace of this rotation. And I really think my prediction with him is he is going to beat out Cole and Ray and be the leader in strikeouts, and also be starting game one of the postseason for our White Sox. Then also, my second pitcher is in the pen, and Vinnie brought him up actually earlier in the show with Garrett Crochet. I really think he's going to see a lot more innings this season, and Tony's going to have full confidence in throwing him out there because if you haven't seen those clips of him making Ohtani look like a fool, you gotta go check out them nasty clips of that slider that he's got. And my prediction out of him, I think he has a shot. I'm gonna surprise people with this, but I think he's gonna have a true shot at representing our White Sox in July at the All-Star game as a relief arm out of the bullpen.
Oh, I like it. I like it, man. I like the positivity out of you, Gonzo. I feel like you got to chug a couple Red Bulls, and then I want to see you. I want to see just the veins popping out of your head when you make that prediction. I turned into right. Batman. Wow.
I was right.
I'm Batman.
I was right with Lance Lynn.
Where is he?
And I'm doing double or nothing off of my boldness with Lynn last year, so I'm gonna go with Cease and Crochet here.
Nice, man. Man, that gets me fired up. How about you, Vinny? Who's your put it on the board player of the spring, or put it on the board excited for the baseball season?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my guy, Robert Murray. He's a National Baseball insider. He works for the company I work for at Fansided, and he's broken a lot of news over the course of the offseason. And, I want to say that having him help me with some of the information that he's given me, having me have content ready throughout the offseason and in our MLB group chat on Slack that we have, it's just very helpful. And, information on what the White Sox are looking at or who they're looking at. I don't make it up. I hear it from people who have inside sources. So he's my put it on the board reporter of the offseason just because I'm so grateful with how much he's helped me, which then I've been able to bring more to the Barroom Network with that information. It's greatly appreciated. As far as players on the White Sox, I'm actually going to go with a coach. I'm going to go with Ethan Katz. I think the White Sox have incredible talent pitching. I think Gonzo would just go absolutely bananas and take off all his clothes if Dylan Cease actually lives up to the potential that he is capable of, because I know how much fan he is of that. I think Cease is capable. I think there are so many good pitchers in the White Sox rotation that it's hard for me to just say, oh, Cease is going to be the game one starter. Oh, Kopech is going to pitch in this situation. Oh, Giolito is going to be this guy. I think Giolito is going to be the game one starter of the postseason and the regular season. That's just my opinion as where we stand right now. But with what Ethan Katz has done for Cease, Kopech, Crochet, really only the old guys have gone backwards while Ethan Katz has been around, like Dallas Keuchel, Craig Kimbrell. I really hope that really all these young guys reach their potential. I want to see Cease use that knuckle curve to his advantage this year. I know Ethan Katz has been helping him with that. We saw what he did in high school pitching coaching with Giolito, Flaherty, and now I'm blanking on his name on Atlanta. Either way.
Fried.
Fried. Yeah, Max Fried. We've seen him be so impactful with major league pitching, and I think that's going to be the case for the White Sox this year. So my put it on the board players of the week is Ethan Katz and his pitching staff.
Man, Vinny, that's so well said, man. It's I totally forgot about Katz. I got so used to, we had one great year of Ethan Katz, and then you kind of go in the offseason, you take for granted this pitching staff, and he's a big reason behind it.
Yep.
And it gets me excited too. Gonzo's putting up his finger. He's got a thought. What is it, Gonzo?
Say the outlier to the older guys not having success with Katz would be Lance Lynn, but I agree with what Vinnie said.
Yeah, well, Lynn was a top 6 Cy Young guy with the Rangers the 2 years prior to. So Lynn basically just had to come in and throw hard. That's what Lynn does. He doesn't work off he works off his fastball, where Giolito works off his changeup and then uses his fastball to his advantage. Same thing with Cease and the knuckle curve. So like for Lynn, it's just, hey, go out there and pump out strikes and see if they can hit it. And so far they haven't.
He's pumping the fastball and the cutter, locating the cutter.
Yeah, and the cutter is like probably his best fastball, and he's got 3 fastballs in his repertoire, and they make up, I want to say, I remember seeing the stat, his fastballs make up for like 80% of his pitches thrown. So if you're Ethan Katz, you look at him and say, hey, you just go out there and throw the damn thing. So, and it's worked out. So that's what I got on that.
Nice, man. I love that. It's really exciting for me too. Getting ready for pitching, some quality pitching again on the South Side. It's funny. Also, Justin Lee makes a good comment in the chat. Ethan Katz's shoe game is underrated. I would agree with that. His
style game is underrated. He's just a stylistic dude. I love that guy. Oh, Ethan Katz is my everything player of the week this year.
I love it, man. I'm excited for that. And, I'm going to go with my put it on the board player of the spring, or what I'm most excited for. PZ made a comment, and this is exactly what I feel. I'm really excited to see Tim Anderson and Josh Harrison together on the field, on the diamond, kind of getting things done. Those two have very similar personalities, and they're gritty players, and I think they're going to add a nice swagger to that infield. So for me, that's my put it on the board excited moment heading into the year. And Gonzo's wagging his finger. What do you got, buddy?
Yeah, when Vinny was talking about Josh earlier, I wanted to talk about, but I know we had to keep going. But Chuck did have a really good interview with Josh on his podcast. But to go along with his character, who we need, with what PZ just said, him and Timmy are just going to be crazy with their duo, with the character they have. But Josh, we need players like Josh with the versatility that he has in his defense. And he reminds me a lot like Howie Kendrick, and, the success that the Nationals had with him, and also the Angels did. But that's just a guy that, like you said, Joe, is just signed for a good deal that I think is going to be the guy that this roster is going to need. That's not going to his name that he's not going to spark around baseball too crazy, but he's a guy that is going to get the job done here for our second base role.
To me, and this is probably a weird comparison for people, but to me, I think Josh Harrison could be like the Carl Everett of this group, like from 2005, the guy that kind of comes in and kicks that chemistry into high gear. Because Carl Everett was like a hard ass. And I know I'm not saying he's similar to Josh Harrison in the way he handles himself, but I think he's that guy that's going to pour in and kind of get this team gelling to the next stage where they need to be. So I'm just excited to see that come into fruition because let's be honest.
You of Timo Perez from that 05 team.
I mean, wow, that's taking me back. No, I guess sort of. I guess it's not the worst comparison in the world, but
hey, he's the winning run of the World Series.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He certainly is. So we've gotten through our predictions. We talked about all this fun stuff. And we're already at the almost hour and a half mark, boys. And we've always liked to wrap things up at the end of the show to do a little something fun, a little something lighthearted. Favorite something, this in the ballpark. We've done, favorite ballpark songs, all that stuff. And today we're anticipating the upcoming season. So we're going to do the most anticipated ballpark snack. Like, what's that thing you're craving in the ballpark? It may not be like your number one thing every time you go to the game, but like, man, just thinking of going to the ballpark, that's the first thing you want to do and get this when you walk in. What's your most anticipated ballpark snack heading into 2022? Vinny, I'll let you lead the way.
Oh, I mean, for me, it always comes down to two. But one I'll get periodically throughout the year, and that's the helmet nachos. The helmet nachos are just so good. I get them with pork. Just absolutely unbelievably amazing. No sour cream because sour cream's gross, but I'll take the extra cheese. But the thing that I will get probably, and I'm saying this with no exaggeration, I plan on going to opening day against the Seattle Mariners. I probably within 5 minutes of walking into the stadium will get the Cuban sandwich if it's back. And I mean it with no exaggeration that I absolutely love that sandwich. It's on the first base side, lower level, or not first base side. It's more like the third base side, home plate-ish. And it's a mini Minoso little stand.
The Cuban Comet.
The Cuban Comet, exactly. And it's the red, white, and blue uniform stripes as the decor of that little stand. And they're just pumping them out. I probably will get one within 5 minutes of being there before the game even starts or before the players even take the field for warm-ups. So that's my most anticipated snack. I cannot wait to get back in and have me one of those. Very much looking forward to it, especially knowing that the Cuban baseball organization, or whatever you want to call it, they make the White Sox an elite team. I mean, we're talking Yasmani Grandal, Luis Robert, Jose Abreu, Yohan Moncada, Yoelqui Cespedes eventually, Oscar Coles eventually. Minnie Minoso is one of the all-time great White Sox players. He's probably he is the OG, Cuban superstar in Major League Baseball. I believe he's the first black player to ever play for a Chicago sports franchise. So, I love that Cuban panini, and I love almost the history behind it and what it means to the team today. So, yay, Cuban panini.
Dude, you cannot go wrong ever with the Cuban sandwich at the Sox game.
Yeah.
It's just when you walk by, it's almost impossible not to look through the glass and take a look at those beauties sizzling Absolutely. There on the flat top.
And I'm considered, all my people around me call me a diva. Like, I hate when my hands are dirty. Like, I always wash my hands. I don't like when they even have a little bit of grease on them. And that's a slight problem at Guaranteed Rate Field. Your hands are greasy when you're done eating it. I don't care. It's the one time in my life I'm a man with grease on my hands. I'm getting me a Cuban panini.
You're a man with grease on your hands and you're getting a Cuban panini. I like that quote. We should put that one day. That'll be in the books. Vinnie Parise. I'm a man with grease on my hands and I got my Cuban panini.
Yep. And my mom, Lisa, in the chat talking about macaroni and cheese with brisket. She probably agrees with Joey, my brother Joey. The Mac Shack. The Parise family is known for extending their Italian roots at Guaranteed Rate Field, eating at the Mac Shack.
There you go, man. That sounds good too. Lots of good options. All right, Gonzo, what is your ballpark snack that you're craving the most heading into the season?
So mine's a bit cheesy, but since I moved out here,
Bumps.
yeah, cheesy to go with the macaroni. But since I moved out here to San Diego, I'm gonna have to really find this snack at Petco Park. And the White Sox travel out here to San Diego at the end of September for a weekend series. So I'm gonna have to go find out what ballpark snacks are really good out here at Petco. Um, Maybe I can get Joe and Vinnie out there, possibly Steven at the end of September. We can have like a rent out like a villa or something out here and just go crazy that weekend. But
That would be
You
something.
never
It
know.
was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the last series of the year until the stupid lockout forced them to take that Twin series and put it right behind it. That's annoying.
I didn't even know that how that was going to work out. But listen, the suggestions out there for a weekend out here in San Diego.
There you go, man. I love it, Gonzo. I love it. And I'm gonna go with my ballpark. The number one thing I'm craving heading into the season, and it's a 1 and 1A. We're gonna lead off here with a little bit of news, which Vinnie actually broke on Twitter yesterday, and the White Sox are now a Miller Lite ballpark, sponsored by the Miller Corporation, and that means one thing and one thing only for me: the return of Summer Shandy from Lining Google to the ballpark, because Miller owns the Lining Google Corporation. So that's exciting for me that Summer Shandy will make its triumphant return to Guaranteed Rate Field. There's nothing like a Summer Shandy when it's 80 to 90 degrees outside. It's so refreshing. Don't get me wrong, 312's Italian Shandy was okay, but it's not Lining Google Summer Shandy. So I'm excited to partake in a Summer Shandy in the stands at least once this year, while I have my Chicago style hot dog with all the fixins. I mean, it's the only way to live, gentlemen, and I can smell it already.
Joe, over under me and you dummying a Miller Lite and a hot dog. I'll set it at 4 games this season.
Well, that it's a little high because it's a little different for me this year now. I for those of our listeners who don't, and viewers that don't know, my wife and I, we welcomed our first child here in early January, my daughter Audrey. Yes, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. There'll be pictures on another show. but I don't know. We're figuring all that out. I do have my 20 game package, so I know I'll definitely.
One. So that's good.
I'm definitely going to at least one game. I can promise you that.
Absolutely.
So,
you know what? Isn't it funny? I got credit for breaking the Miller Lite thing. I found out like an hour beforehand, and people are like crediting me with I'm like, I just tweeted it because I like Miller Lite. Like, that was literally the only reason I even tweeted it in the first place. I was like, ooh, Miller Lite, let's go.
Well, it's like it's got and thank you PZ for the comment. I appreciate it. It's got everyone talking like, oh, the whole Goose Island section that was in right field. What's going to happen to that? Well, I think it's pretty obvious what's going to happen to it. It's going to become a Lining Google section. It's going to have to. It's natural. It makes sense. I mean, back when they were a Miller Park, they had Lining Google stands all over the place with the canoe and all that. Mm-hmm. They've got the water there already. That's my bet. I'm willing to bet that becomes a Lining Google Island or Shandy Island or whatever you want to call it.
I think it's just going to be called Brian Knight's Club or something,
We got to get him on.
You never know. I mean, they could just go ahead and make it. Maybe they'll bring it back and they'll start calling it the bullpen island or something. To a nod to the old bullpen bar, which is now the Craft Cave. And we'll see. Hopefully, there's more seat vendors this year too. We'll find out about that as well. But I believe the park is staying cashless, so it's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. All we can hope for is shorter lines than there were last year, but
it was tough.
But the best part is we get there early. That's why I go early. I like to watch the game. I get my stuff, sit in my seat, crank it back, go to baseball town. But Gentlemen, we've reached the hour and 35-minute mark. We want to thank everyone in the chat who hung out with us all night, commenting, getting part of the action. Of course, I got to thank my co-host here. Well, thank Steven Zimmerman, who couldn't be here tonight, feeling under the weather, but he was with us in the chat, and that's what really matters. So thanks for joining us, Zim. We'll see you next week. And before I toss it to Vinnie and Chris for final thoughts, I do want to tease our guest for next week. We have a great guest. That's right. Next Monday, April 4th, 8 p.m. in our new time slot, we will be welcoming White Sox Stadium host Alyssa Bergamini. She also covers the Bulls this season. We are more than excited to have her on the show again. Friend of the show, always keeping things exciting in the ballpark. And she will be joining us next week to talk White Sox, to talk everything going on in the stadium. And maybe we can get her thought on a couple of the handouts this year. There's a couple of sweet bobbleheads this season. I'm sure some of you guys have seen it out there. So a great show coming up next week with Alyssa Bergamini. Do not miss that one next weekend. Next week, it's going to be a blast. So be here for it. We can't wait for it. But let's toss it over to the gentlemen for their final thoughts. Chris, let's get your final thoughts tonight, my friend.
Final thoughts. Man, I'm actually excited for the opening schedule here for the Sox, going off to Detroit. Getting on the road here. It's going to be exciting. Sox do well in Detroit the past 2 years, and especially, I know I've been talking about him a lot, but Dylan Cease, he's going to be in there for one of those 3 games, and I think in his career against Detroit, he's like 8-0 with 1.7 ERA or something like that. His stats are just ridiculous, and I'm excited to see what we can do in Detroit, and watching Javier Baez probably strike out a couple of times, so I'll enjoy that. But then I think they start off at home versus Seattle, if I remember right. So that will be exciting to see that. Other than that, I'm excited for the opening stretch, and then Alyssa, you guys will be interviewing her. I'm not going to be here for the next couple of weeks. But don't worry, everyone in the chat. I'll be sending in Gonzo's
you're gonna have
weekly
your
videos.
Segment. You're still getting your segment, Gonzo.
Hey,
Don't
I'm
worry.
just teasing it. I'm teasing it. All right, we got a Gonzo segment coming. But other than that, shout outs from me. It's going to be you, Joe, for becoming a father here.
Thank you, brother.
We got another baby, another South Burbs Hitmen baby.
That's right.
That has been introduced. Also going to shout out Vince for keeping me on my toes in the chat with my spontaneous thoughts that I've got. Also shout out to my girlfriend Sarah, who's tuned in. And my last shout out is going to be to my grandpa, my mom's dad. I think he's going to be put into hospice here pretty soon. Tough times in the household at home. So yeah, shout out to my grandpa. Last couple of days I got left with him. I gotta give him a call soon. It's hard not being away from home, not being able to be there. One of the sacrifices I have to give is part of my career, but it is what it is, and I appreciate any thoughts and prayers out my way. But
definitely praying for your grandfather, Chris. So always in our thoughts. So thanks for sharing that, man, and we appreciate you as always. Vinny, what do you got for final thoughts and shout outs?
Final thoughts. The Chicago White Sox are going to be very good this year. I know we have one more show before they actually kick things off, but we are really looking at probably the greatest era of White Sox baseball. I know they won the World Series in 2005, but it came out of nowhere. Nobody really went into that season thinking they'd be any better than second place. So we're going into this year. Last year, you all watched them make it to the postseason 2 years in a row for the first time ever. This year, we're looking for them to make it to the postseason 3 years in a row for the first time ever and win the division title for the second year in a row for the first time ever. So very good team. I know there's some holes to fill. They'll figure it out, but they're going to be a very fun team. Enjoy the ride. It's going to be a good time. We're going to be here with you all season long, and I'm very much looking forward to it. There are some outstanding players with outstanding personalities on this team. For shout-outs, I'll shout out my girlfriend, Katie. wouldn't be anywhere without her. During the lockout, it wasn't very easy to do my job. And, times were tough and we got through it, and would be nothing without that and support. And, also my family, my mom, dad, brother, Joey, everyone around me means a lot to me, and I would be nowhere without them. And I also got to shout out you guys, my favorite co-hosts, of course. We do great work here at the Barroom Network. I'm very proud to be a part of it. And Joe, public congratulations to you for the birth of your daughter. I'm very excited
Thank you.
In person eventually. And Gonzo,
sure.
my thoughts and prayers to you and your family. I hope everything works out as well as it possibly can. I will be sending my good vibes and prayers your way.
All beautiful sentiments across the board, gentlemen. Final thoughts for me tonight. Just ready for baseball season. Excited, ready to rock and roll.
Oh.
And Vinnie, I'm ready to draft against you on Friday night in our fantasy baseball draft. You actually took Gonzo's place, believe it or not. Gonzo's got other stuff going on. He's a busy man, but you're a more than admirable fill-in for Gonzo, and I'm just looking forward to some fantasy baseball.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
So, yeah, just excited for that. Shout-outs, of course. I'm going to shout out all my co-hosts here. Vinny, I've been a great addition to the squad, man, and having you from the beginning of the year is just dynamite, and you bring such knowledge, and of course you're covering this stuff all day. You live it and breathe it, and it's just great to be able to have you on the show. So thank you for joining up with us and being here for full time for season 2. We love having you. Gonzo, I appreciate you, brother. Always, you've been here from the start. It's been a heck of a ride, and we've taken this thing to where we are now, and we're going to continue building it where it needs to go. So, and we're wishing you nothing but the best with all your stuff out there on the West Coast. So continue kicking ass. And then Steven Zimmerman, of course, under the weather tonight, but we love you too, brother. Of course, he's got a relatively new addition as well. And on top of it all, the man is starting a new job. So nothing but respect for you, Zim, and can't wait to talk baseball with you next week. So looking forward to having you back and you feeling better. I got a shout out, of course, my beautiful wife, Catherine, and our new baby daughter, Audrey. And a special shout out to my Great Dane puppy, Maverick. He's not a puppy anymore, but today is his 2nd birthday. So happy 2nd birthday, Maverick. I love you, buddy. I'll be up there to rub your belly here in just a few minutes. And then, of course, a big shout out to the barkeeper himself, Mr. Aldo Gandia, for allowing us to have this platform and for this amazing network, the Barroom Network. Make sure you follow on Twitter, on all the social media platforms. Give us a follow here on YouTube. Just subscribe if you can. It would help a lot. And, of course, you can find us anywhere podcasts are available. Apple, Spotify, you name it. So great shows. Of course, Vinny's got Crosstown Crosstalk. We've got Bar Down Blackhawks. You got Mike North Advantage, Greg Gabriel talking football, Barfly Tailgate Show, Fantasy Football Goon, Bulls Gold, you name it. There's just so many darn amazing shows on this network. Bear Football. Subscribe so you can check them all out. So shout out to Aldo and all the other great hosts on the network. Wouldn't be able to do it without you. And last but not least, the amazing chat. Love having you here with us. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. But we've reached the end of our rope. We're at the hour and 45-minute mark. We're going to get out of here. But for the South Burbs Hitmen, I am Joe Mandel. The guy to my top right is Vinnie Parise. The top left is Chris Gonzalez. And the guy who's a little under the weather and not here with us, that's Steven Zimmerman. We love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Let's go, White Sox. And we'll see you back here next week with Alyssa Bergamini, White Sox Stadium host. It's going to be a great show. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.